Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is all about every employee and every customer should feel welcomed in your organization. They should not feel as though you're prejudging them or that you're biased against them. Chapter 7 is all about diversity. So to talk about the history of diversity, the land mass of the United States back in 1491 was 100% Native American. Now we have less than, I think, 1% Native American in the country. History has changed dramatically. Europeans came, South Americans came, Asians came. African Americans were enslaved. They were forced to come here. People from the Middle East are coming here now because America's a great place. A lot of freedom, a lot of opportunity. Each time new immigrants came, there was prejudices about that. I'm Irish. And I remember reading stories about the Irish when they came. Everybody hated the Irish. They didn't like the way that they talked. They didn't like the way that they smelled. They made potato jokes about them. They wouldn't hire the Irish. So then only Irish people would hire Irish because that was the only jobs you can have. And then new Irish came after some others had been here for a while. If you watch the movie Gangs of New York, that's what that's all about. The old Irish were here, new Irish came, and the old Irish didn't like the new Irish. They thought that they were just strange and they were weird. And that's life. So we're all very, very diverse, and that the chapter is all about the history of diversity and religious diversity, so not just ethnic diversity, personality diversity, how to get along with people with different personalities. That's a huge issue in organizations. And we have diversity and hierarchy in organizations. Some CEOs won't speak to janitors. Some janitors won't speak to CEOs. How can you create a community where they really, really respect one another? Talk a lot about workplace discrimination, and I go through the typical Title VII issues: gender discrimination and glass ceilings, racial discrimination at work, ethnicity discrimination at work, religious discrimination at work. How do you feel about young people having tattoos on their cheeks? How do you feel about young people having tattoos in their ears and coming out of their eyes and their bank teller? So we play around with those kinds of issues as well. Disability is a big issue. How do you make an organization disability friendly? Sexual orientation. Major changes in the United States in terms of gender issues, transsexual issues. How do you deal with that? Harassment. How do you deal with claims of harassment? Sometimes there's false claims of harassment. How do you get the people to discuss these kinds of issues? So I provide a lot of government data to say that, hey, if you think this stuff isn't happening, you're fooling yourself, because every year there's a lot of lawsuits on that. And then I play with what to do about that stuff and all the competitive advantages of diversity management. And then, like the ethics training chapter, I do some of my favorite diversity training chapters. Workshops on who are you, how are we different, how are we all different, and then also how are we very similar, what kind of biases do you have. And then we play with sexual harassment, ethical dilemmas, because sometimes person X will say that's sexual harassment and another person will say that's not sexual harassment. So we do a workshop on, is that sexual harassment or is that not sexual harassment? The last diversity workshop in that chapter you won't find in any business ethics books is about communication styles. I have a particular communication style, and it's let's get to the point. I'm also a Capricorn. I'm also kind of aggressive, and I was raised in New York. I don't take much from other folks. That's a particular personality style. Some people love that personality style. Some people say, you don't seem to be very friendly. You seem to be a little bit too aggressive. But you know what? That's the way that I was born. That's the way that I was raised. So we have different kinds of communication styles, and instead of judging me for having a different communication style, how to work with somebody like my style. I struggle with people who are very dramatic, telling stories all the time, but they love to do that. So through this particular workshop, I appreciate the fact that they're dramatic, and I'm not. And we need all kinds of personalities to make a good community at work.